Finally, proper cinematic intro and outro. If you came here after watching the previous two videos, welcome back. If you didn't watch them, I suggest you go do that first and then come back here. In this video, I will be breaking down the remaining base roster characters. But first, a few words on the state of the game. I said in previous video that network-related issues seem to become less frequent, and yeah, it just seemed that way. All the issues are still here. And last time I checked, Latin American players can't play the game at all because their servers are broken for some reason. Not a good look. On the positive side, they released the Combo Maker mode, where you can make your own combos and share them with everyone, or look up what other people came up with and use their knowledge for yourself. This is an amazing addition, and it would be great if more fighting game developers did something like that. This mode also suffers from network-related issues though. Okay, now let's get on with the character breakdown.
Ramlethal Valentine.
The game says that Ramlethal is a shooter-type character, but I don't know about that. Aside from throwing her swords, which is admittedly a huge part of her game plan, she doesn't have any other projectiles. First of all, back in Exard, Ramlethal had a special mechanic that allowed her to link her punches and kicks together in a unique combo, reference in fighting games with similar mechanics like Tekken and Mortal Kombat. Another unique mechanic allowed her to position her swords in the arena for zoning and combos. Both of these mechanics are gone in Stripe, with only some attacks referencing that they were a thing at all. Poor Ramlethal. Okay, let's get to the stuff that she does have. Her swords are still her most important assets. Her slash and heavy slash attacks have great reach and are pretty fast. They can be used both as counters and to punish with attacks, especially heavy slash. There are two problems with these attacks. The first one is that while it normally creates enough distance to make it safe, if the opponent is close enough, they will be able to punish you on block using attacks with long hitboxes or advancing overdrives, like Leo's Light and Shaft des Dirigenten or Kai's Ride the Lightning. And Far Slash is too slow to be effective up close and will be intercepted by faster moves. This makes it important to know what move to use at which distance. The second issue is that neutral heavy slash just doesn't have good follow-ups outside counter hits, relegating the otherwise amazing attack to poking and countering. Next up is the crouch heavy slash. This is Ramlethal's main launcher attack, which allows you to follow up with different specials. It also works as a decent anti-air, which gives you a follow-up into a full combo and counter hit. Now let's go over Ramlethal's special attacks. The first special is Error Lumo, a 3-hit Rekka, which references how cool she was in Exard. You can perform the full special even on whiff. You also get various advantages if you delay the input slightly for second and third hits. Note that the enemy can intercept the second hit with an invincible reversal. As of version 1.10, Ramlethal can dash cancel first and second hits of this special, which usually leads to throws. Now, Ramlethal cannot do anything right after dash cancelling the attack, so there's a slight gap between the cancel and the next action she'll perform. When you fight Ramlethal and she does this dash cancel, you can mesh punch to avoid getting thrown. Next up is Sildo de Truo, which makes Ramlethal leap forward and strike downwards with her hands. This move can also be performed in the air. Back in the olden days, this attack was an overhead, which could be useful if you conditioned the opponent to block low. But as of version 1.10, you can block low even against the aerial version. Actually, Ramlethal doesn't have a single grounded overhead outside of dust, so if you can react to it, there is no reason not to block low. The only situation where this move is useful is when you get a counter hit with neutral heavy slash, which allows you to transition into close slash and perform a combo. It's pretty useless otherwise. The next special is Dauro, which makes Ramlethal do a dashing attack. By itself it's a decent combo ender, but if you land it on an airborne opponent, Dauro actually launches them high enough for you to continue the combo. So now you need something to fill that combo with, and forward heavy slash command normal is perfect for the job. It makes Ramlethal do a forward strike that blows the opponent away. This attack is very good for carrying your opponent into corner, and there is a very good reason for you to do that. Now it's time to talk about Ramlethal's projectile attack, Bayonetto, which makes her launch her swords horizontally forward. This special has slash and heavy slash variations. each of which launches a corresponding sword at a different altitude. For example, when you use Heavy Slash version, you launch the sword used for Heavy Slash attacks. The swords always fly all the way to the wall, and after they hit it, they explode. Okay, now check this out. This little juggler right here is the integral part of Ramlethal's game plan. Corner the opponent and throw your swords at them. In a proper combo, Bayonetta guarantees a wall break. You can also apply Bayonetta for sheer corner pressure, as the delayed explosion and different elevation between the versions allows you to keep the opponent locked down in a situation that can be very hard to escape from, as burst becomes very unreliable and easy to miss with. Bayonetta has one major weakness. When you throw your swords, not only you lose access to this special, but every single attack that uses the swords will now be done without them. This includes all normals and Aggressa Ordono and Sabrobato specials, since they use your swords specifically. You get your swords back either by waiting until Lucifero brings them back, or by going near them yourself. Alternatively, you can instantly retrieve your swords by executing Calvados Overdrive, which is basically just as Gamma Ray but not as cool, though it does deal good chip damage and eats through tension if blocked by Faultless Defense. Finally, Ramlethal's only invincible reversal is Mortobata Overdrive, during which she creates a big explosion. This attack comes out more or less instantly, which allows you to catch opponents who get overconfident with their offense. It's Ramlethal's best option for breaking the wall if you have tension to spare. Otherwise, use Sabrobato. Ramlethal's swords allow her to cover a lot of space on the ground and protect her from jump-in attacks. In combination with other attacks, these babies help Ramlethal create monstrous pressure that can be quite hard to get out of. But if she throws them while far from the corner, her offensive and defensive abilities both get crippled. This especially goes for Heavy Slash. Finally, and most importantly, she makes a hilarious face on hard knockdown.
Leo Whitefang.
I was going to make another joke about gorillas, but you know what? Leo deserves more respect than that. He's one of the coolest characters in the game. He is so cool that his unique mechanic outright gives the middle finger to Strive's mockery of a Gatling mechanic. His Majesty Leo Whitefang is so cool in fact that his forward punch is not some physical attack, no, he projects his coolness onto the material plane to strike you. I don't even care that its hitbox isn't that big, it's objectively the best forward punch attack in the game, except no substitutes. Unfortunately, what isn't the best is Leo's mobility. Namely, he doesn't have a run and dash like most other characters do. Instead, he gets this short step dash which doesn't cover a lot of ground. You can kind of spam it to imitate the run and dash, but it can be annoying to do. Let's look at some of Leo's normal attacks. Neutral kick carries him forward a little. This is Leo's quickest approach tool, and it isn't that risky to use unlike most of his other attacks, since it's more or less safe on block. And if you do it after a dash, it covers even more space. Overall a great tool to get in close quarters. Crouch Dust, instead of being a simple sweep, is a low-hitting dropkick. Not only it allows you to go over some low attacks, but it actually makes Leo airborne, which in turn allows you to counter throws, leading to some nice sweet punishment. Its only immediately apparent downside is that it cannot be cancelled into special attacks directly. Next up are Leo's Far Slash and Heavy Slash attacks. Both are pretty good long-range pokes, though they aren't exactly safe on whiff or block. However, they have this neat feature. If you continue holding the buttons after the attack went through, Leo will enter a special block stance that will guard you against any mid and high attacks for as long as you hold the button down. When you press the other button, Leo will do this attack, which is a great way to land a punish or get a counter hit. Do note that you cannot do anything about low attacks in this stance, and they will actually count as counter hits. Next, Leo's Heavy Slash attack actually double barrels into Far Slash. You probably won't be using that much, but it's neat. Finally, Heavy Slash causes a wall bounce, which allows you to do some pretty cool loops in the corner. Let's move on to Leo's special attacks. The first one is Turbulence, where Leo slams his blade into the ground to create an explosion that launches the opponent. By itself, this move is not very good, and its hitbox is much smaller than its appearance would suggest. It is also unlikely to hit the grounded opponent in a combo due to the delay. Use it in a combo against the opponent who already has been launched instead. Next up is Graviette Verde, Leo's projectile which comes in slash and heavy slash variations. Slash version is pretty fast and deals 2 hits, which allows it to beat single hit projectiles. Its only weakness is that it doesn't go all the way across the screen. The heavy slash version goes all the way across the screen but is much slower. It is also bigger and deals 4 hits instead of 2, which allows it to beat multi-hit projectiles, like Kai's charged stun edge. Both versions are pretty good for space control, and heavy slash one even allows Leo to start approaching the opponent while using it as a shield. Just remember about attacks that go under it, like Nitrate Vortex. Next is Leo's Dragon Punch type move, Eisensturm. It also has slash and heavy slash variations. The heavy slash version has an additional hit that results in a hard knockdown. As with all Dragon Punch type moves in the game, be very careful when using it on Wake Up because it can be easily thrown. And try not to whiff it, or you'll be sorry. Leo's final special move is Kaltes Gestube, which makes him dash forward with an attack. It also has slash and heavy slash versions. The slash version, called Erstes Kaltes Gestube, is very short dash and is primarily a combo ender, though you can combo off of it on counter hit in the corner. The heavy slash version, called Zweites Kaltes Gestube, makes Leo do a very long dash, and if you reach the opponent before it ends, you'll run through them, which will make it necessary to block the other side. It is pretty slow though and can be thrown by someone who can react to it well enough. If you really want to land it, you have to put the opponent into a situation when they cannot throw it. Okay, now it's time to look at Leo's unique mechanic, the Brunhilde stance. Commonly called back turn stance because he turns his back to the opponent and stands there, with his coat flapping in the wind. Truly a badass. There are 3 ways of entering Brunhilde stance. Landing a ground throw, holding down the slash button when you use Turbulence, or landing a successful run throw attack with Zweites Kaltes Gestube. During the back turn stance, Leo can still walk normally and dash, with his dash even passing through the opponent. However, he cannot jump or block, and if he gets hit, he exits the stance. You can also exit the stance manually by tapping down twice. Now let's go over the normal attacks in Brunhilde stance. Punch actually works like a normal forward punch anti-air, giving you upper body invincibility. Kick is a quick low jab that works well as a substitute for usual punch attacks. Slash is a relatively quick poke with good range. Finally, Heavy Slash is a slow but powerful overhead attack that causes a ground bounce, which leads to good combos. Now, the coolest thing about these normals is that they actually follow the old Gatling combination route. That means that you can go from punch to heavy slash like in the old games. Kick and punch also cancel into each other. This allows for amazing pressure and mix-ups. You can still use all of your special attacks while in Brunhilde stance, though Graviette Verde is pretty obvious since it's a charge input. But Eisensturm actually benefits from the dash macro, because it allows you to dash around while holding down. Not sure why you'd want to do this though, and here's why. Brunhilde stance actually has its own special moves, the first of which is Kanschild, done simply by pressing dust while in the stance. It is a big ass shield that parries any attacks that hit it. This includes low attacks. If you played BlazBlue, this is basically Hakumen's Zanshin parry, but 1000 times cooler because it's Leo doing it. This semi-cinematic parry has a limited effective range though. If the opponent is too far for it, their attack will just bounce off the shield. It does protect you from the attack but grants you no real benefits. Overall, when used well, Kanschild allows you to parry opponents who get overconfident on the offensive while you are in the stance, and it allows you to make the otherwise unsafe backturn heavy slash safe, and smack people trying to punish it. It's also somewhat spammable, but there is still a gap for the opponent to land a hit. But wait, there's more! Kanschild also reflects most projectiles in the game, and the ones it doesn't reflect, it still neutralizes. That includes overdrives. Stun Edge, reflect it. Gunflame, reflect that shit. Shitsu, tell that hippie shit to bugger off. Antidepressant scale. Return it to sender first class. Awesome special overall. Somehow people never expect me to use it against projectiles. The second special exclusive to Brunhilde's stance is Glanzendes Dunkel, which makes Leo dash forward and perform a throw. This attack is very reactable, so you should condition the opponent to block your pressure first, so that they don't expect you to use it. It also benefits nicely from red Roman cancels. Note that you exit the stance after the throw. If you want to keep it, keep holding down the kick button, just like you did with Turbulence to enter the stance. The final special exclusive to the backturn stance is Blitzschlag. Leo performs a slow downward swing with both blades. This is your primary combo ender and wall breaker in Brunhilde's stance. It also causes a guard crash and block. As with Glanzendes Dunkel, you have to keep the button pressed if you want to stay in Brunhilde's stance. Leo also has an overdrive exclusive to Brunhilde's stance called Stahlwirbel, which is a very fast, big-ass projectile. Like with Blitzschlag, you can use it both as a combo ender and to break the wall. Also, if you time your input well, you can use it to follow up on the successful Kanshield parry. Finally, for your invincible reversal needs, Leo has the Leidenschaft des Dirigenten overdrive, which has Leo perform multiple strikes, all of which have enormous hitboxes and can easily catch the opponent. If they block it though, you're in for a world of pain. Overall, Leo is a somewhat hard character to learn because he basically has two movesets, all of which you have to be able to use appropriately to be effective. But once you learn them, you get a character who performs incredibly well both on defense and offense. Brunhilde's stance gives Leo incredibly scary pressure that you cannot easily punish because of Kanshield that threatens to send you to the Shadow Realm if you're not careful. Back when I just started playing, Leo was one of the characters that consistently gave me issues. Even His Majesty is not without his own weaknesses though. His low mobility can make it hard for him to get into his effective range. Outside of his backturn stance, his best normals are very easy to punish on whiff, which often leads to big damage against him. Most of them don't have a hitbox that extends beyond Leo's hurtbox either, so all of that metal can be hit to deal damage. Zweites Kaltes Gestube, one of his methods for entering Brunhilde's stance, can easily be thrown if you know when to do it. Countering this move is probably one of the first things you should learn if you want to cripple his offensive. Learning to bait Eisensturm or Leidenschaft des Dirigenten is also a very good idea. Also, Yellow Roman Cancel can actually be used to force him out of a backturn stance and make him more vulnerable. Leo is my favorite character in the game so far, if only because his backturn normals basically allow me to bypass Strife's stupid double barrel combo system and feel like I have more options for approaching the fight than I really do. Also, this breakdown took almost 6 pages compared to 3 or 4 for other characters. This is how awesome Leo Whitefang is. Oh, finally, I don't have to butcher any German words anymore.
Nagoriyuki.
Now it's time to look at the first newcomer to this series, and you know what? I have to admit that playing him is kind of fun. Since Nagoriyuki is new, I don't feel like I've had any fingers cut off like I do with other characters. He was made specifically for this game with its features and limitations in mind. Moreover, he has his own unique mechanic that gives him depth and in a way conveys his personality. But all in due order. The game classifies Nagoriyuki as a one-shot type character, and while he doesn't actually kill you in one hit, his combos do hurt a lot. Even his individual attacks deal good damage, and they are big. But to land an attack you need to get into the range where the attacks can actually hit, and here lies the first hurdle to overcome. Similarly to Potemkin, Nagoriyuki doesn't have a grounded forward dash and air dashes, and unlike Potemkin he doesn't have a double jump either. This presents certain issues when playing as Nagoriyuki. One saving grace is that he has a pretty good super jump, that actually carries him further forward than it does for most other characters. Nagoriyuki also has a dedicated special that acts as a command dash, Fukyo. It quickly moves him forward or backward with the remaining inertia that keeps the movement going after the dash itself has ended. This inertia also carries over to Nagoriyuki's jump. Fukyo can be cancelled at any point into any other special, including itself. You can also do this. Don't do it though. Let's move on to Nagoriyuki's normal attacks. Neutral Kick is a good short-range poke that is only slightly slower than Neutral Punch. Next is forward kick command normal. This attack works pretty well when you're trying to catch an opponent on wake up after a hard knockdown. Mind the reversals though. Next up is Nagoriyuki's close slash, which is a quick launcher. This move allows you to start a combo or juggle an opponent in the middle of one. Then there is the far slash, which may as well be called long stab because, well, look at it. This is a vital part of Nagoriyuki's offense, being both a long-range poke and a combo tool, more so because of its follow-up attacks. If you press the slash button again, Nagoriyuki will perform another attack. It doesn't have as much range as far slash, but it will never whiff if you hit the opponent with far slash because Nagoriyuki makes a step forward during it. If you press the slash button a third time, Nagoriyuki will perform the final hit of his combo, which causes hard knockdown. Note that the final hit of this combo cannot be cancelled into anything, and you'll have to wait until it fully recovers, which makes it punishable on block. If you see the opponent blocking, cancel the second attack into a special. Now, the heavy slash attacks. Neutral heavy slash is a horizontal swing that blows the opponent away. Crouched is an anti-air that does the same thing. Forward heavy slash command normal is a downward swing that causes soft knockdown, and jumping heavy slash is a downward stab. By themselves, these attacks lack combo capabilities outside of counter hits, but they are important for another reason that I will talk about later. To keep the pace going, I want to quickly mention Wasurayuki, your invincible reversal overdrive. It has Nagoriyuki do a big upward swing, then go ham on the opponent in the air. Beautiful. Note that if the opponent is far enough, only the initial hit will happen with no air combo. Now the special moves. The first one is Shizuriyuki, which is an upward swing similar to Wasurayuki's first strike. If you press the heavy slash button again, Nagoriyuki will follow it up with a downward swing that causes hard knockdown. Now, Shizuriyuki looks like it should work similarly to a Dragon Punch invincibility and all, and it's even done with a Z motion like most Dragon Punches. But no, this is not an invincible reversal. It only grants you invincibility on the upper half of your body, so think of it as an overly dramatic forward punch. Next up is Kamuriyuki, which makes the character slide forward with a slash. It looks like a low attack, but it isn't. The move is completely safe on block. In fact, it recovers literally at the same time as the opponent leaves block stun. If the opponent doesn't know that and tries to punish, you can catch them with something good. Next up is Zarameyuki, which has Nagoriyuki launch a clone of himself as a projectile. This is your primary anti-zoner tool, as it beats all non-overdrive projectiles in the game and doesn't disappear if Nagoriyuki is damaged. So if someone tries to zone you out, you can use Zarameyuki to tell them to cut that shit out. You can also cancel it into Fukyo to make an approach afterwards. Actually, all of the specials I just told you about can be cancelled into each other, though only Fukyo cancels into itself. This gives Nagoriyuki amazing amount of options for approaching a fight. For example, you can use Fukyo to avoid punishment or continue your combo. Wow, that sounds broken as hell. Why would you not just spam your specials until your opponent dies? Well, because of this. This is Blood Rage, which triggers when this blood gauge gets completely filled. Every time you use a special move, it fills up the blood gauge, and when you use specials in quick succession, it fills up even faster. Okay, so why is Blood Rage bad? First, if the opponent is up close during its activation, it will blow them away, but if they are far enough, they can easily punish you while you're stuck in this animation. That's already pretty bad, but that's nothing. Blood Rage actually buffs the range of your heavy slash attacks to a ridiculous degree, which is pretty cool, but in return you completely lose access to all of your specials and Wasurayuki Overdrive. But the worst thing yet is that Blood Rage rapidly drains your life. When you have 50 tension, you can use a special overdrive, Zansetsu, to instantly exit Blood Rage. Zansetsu requires tension, so if you don't have it, you'll be stuck in Blood Rage. So how do we avoid this unfortunate scenario? There are 4 ways to drain your blood gauge. The first one is to let it drain passively, which you usually don't have time for. So instead you can either land the Wasurayuki Overdrive, which will make the gauge empty itself faster, or you can just land normal attacks with your sword, which drains the gauge depending on the attack you landed. Also note that Nagoriyuki's sword normals actually deal chip damage. Finally, you can use Nagoriyuki's command throw, Blood-Sucking Universe, to empty the blood gauge very fast. This special works pretty well in tandem with Fukyo, as its remaining inertia can carry you close enough to your opponent to give them the graveyard bite. You can also use it to catch your opponent when they block Kamuriyuki. Note that your specials aren't free during the bite's effect, as it will struggle against the blood gauge buildup you produce. Also, the bite restores some of your health, but the amount is pretty small, so don't bet on it to save your life in a fight. Okay, so now you know that you can quickly empty your blood gauge with the bite, so it would make sense to use it whenever possible, right? Well, actually, there is a benefit to keeping your blood gauge partially filled. Notice how the gauge is segmented into 3 parts, let's call them level 1, level 2 and level 3. When the gauge is filled up to levels 2 and 3, your heavy slash attacks actually get a buff to their range. Observe. This makes good management of a blood gauge even more important, because as big as Nagoriyuki's hitboxes are, being able to make them even bigger is a benefit too good to overlook. Ideally, you want to balance the gauge around level 3, which is pretty difficult to do both because of a risk of going into blood rage and because your sword attacks deplete the gauge relatively easily when you do a proper combo. In a sense, the blood gauge mechanic resonates with Nagoriyuki's character. It conveys the sort of discipline required to balance his powers so that he can use them as needed in a fight, but not use them too much to avoid losing control and going into blood rage. Nagoriyuki is a pretty fun character to play as, thanks to his unique mechanics. Being able to cancel one special into another allows you to make some pretty cool combos and even perform some really cool maneuvers, like using backwards Fukyo mid-combo to make the opponent whiff the burst and leave themselves open for a lot more pain. However, you cannot allow yourself to use too much of that good stuff, because otherwise you risk losing a round after Blood Rage ate all of your health. I've fought a lot of Nagoriyuki players who died to cheap damage after mismanaging the blood gauge. Hell, it even happened to me a few times. Nagoriyuki going into Blood Rage can be a godsend for the opponent, because the life drain can let you KO him in one combo. But you have to remember about Zansetsu, because one mistake can likewise cost you the round. And if you're playing as cheap, well...
Giovanna.
Unlike Nagoriyuki, the second newcomer is designed to be more beginner-friendly, and it shows. There are no additional gauges, no additional active mechanics, though there is a passive one, just raw fighting prowess. Giovanna doesn't possess many fancy tricks, or just many tricks in general, but what is there works pretty well. Let's start with her mobility. Similarly to Leo, Giovanna only has a step dash, but it's pretty quick and it's also easy to spam when you need to cover long distances. Additionally, the dash's remaining inertia carries over to all of her attacks, both normals and specials. Okay, so let's look at these normals. Close Slash has Giovanna knee the opponent in the gut. It makes the opponent airborne, which allows you to launch the opponent using crouched heavy slash and do a full combo. Close Slash recovers faster than the opponent's block stun ends, which allows you to land a counter hit when they try to punish. Far Slash is 3 consecutive kicks. By itself, the attack only has an okay range, but it benefits immensely from the dash momentum. This right here was my kryptonite back when I started playing, because it looked like the attack's hitboxes are bigger than they really are. Crouch Slash is similar, but only hits twice and is a low. As I already mentioned, Crouched Heavy Slash launches an airborne opponent, which allows you to do a combo. Though it's pretty slow, so I don't recommend using it as a straight up anti-air. Forward Heavy Slash is a free hit Rekka, which makes Giovanna jump into the air. It's pretty unsafe by itself, so you should use it for juggling if you have no tension for Roman cancels. Giovanna's Crouch Dust has a deceptively long range, which is by itself already pretty cool, but it also has a slight delay before becoming active. This allows you to fish for counter hits after attacks that cancel into dust. It also involves some actual dust. Now it's time to move on to Giovanna's special attacks. The first one is Sepultura, which is a big roundhouse kick that results in a hard knockdown. This attack can be used either as a combo ender or to juggle an airborne opponent. The next attack is Sol Nascenti, which is a very reliable anti-air. The way it works is pretty interesting. On startup, it behaves like a forward punch command normal, with invincibility on the upper half of your body, though it's not as effective against ground attacks. But on recovery, it makes Giovanna airborne and allows you to dodge some low attacks. The next attack is Sol Poenti, which makes Giovanna jump up and do a split kick. It cannot be blocked low, so it's very good for low-high mix-ups. And since it hits on both sides and has a forward momentum, it is also good for left-right mix-ups as well. Additionally, you can do it out of a dash for added momentum, which allows you to cross up your opponent even easier. Just roll your input in a half circle after dashing. This attack recovers faster than the opponent's block stun ends, so you can get some nice counters on block. Remember about the anti-airs though. The final special is Trovao, which makes Giovanna do a forward leaping dropkick. Guess what? It also recovers faster than the block stun ends, so you can get some nice counters off of this one as well. Trovao also has the neat property of negating non-overdrive projectiles. That is, if you manage to use it in time before the projectile hits you. It's relatively easy against slow ones, like the Heavy Slash Graviette Verde or Charge Stun Edge, but everything faster than that requires a good read. It also can be easily countered by any attack with an extended hitbox, so be very careful with it. Now for the overdrives. The first overdrive is Ventania, which also acts as Giovanna's invincible reversal. Deals good damage and can carry the opponent to the corner, but can easily be punished on block like most overdrives. The second overdrive is Tempestati, a dive kick that transitions into a combo where Giovanna attacks together with her good girl Ray. Guess what? It also recovers before the block stun ends. Amazing, isn't it? Giovanna also has a passive perk where she gets stronger as you feel the tension gauge. At 50 and 100 tension, Giovanna gets a boost to her attack strength and defense. She also becomes more sickeningly green when the buff kicks in. As for how much it buffs you, let's compare some damage. This makes you want to consider whether you want to hold on to your tension for the passive buff, or use it for overdrive, faultless defense, or Roman cancels. Giovanna is a pretty simple character to grasp since her toolkit isn't anything mind-bending. However, she benefits nicely from her high speed and fast recovery on most attacks, with 4 of them recovering faster than the opponent's block stun ends, which allows her to score some very damaging counter hits. Sol Poenti is also a very potent mix-up tool, which can, with proper use, confuse your opponent. In terms of speed, her dash is really bloody fast, which allows her to close the distance easily and quickly get a throw, which good Giovanna players utilize with frankly infuriating effectiveness. To be able to fight Giovanna well, you have to know how her attacks work, otherwise you will get easily countered. If you have trouble fighting Giovanna, like I did, I recommend straight up picking her up and playing as her for a few days. There is no better way to get familiar with her moveset and learn its strengths and weaknesses. Actually, this is a good advice for any characters in any fighting game in general. Now, there is one final thing to mention. Let's talk about the doggo real quick. Up until this point, I mentioned her a whole lot of once. The dog barely does anything. She mostly hangs around as a decoration for added cuteness, and only actively participates in one attack. Why? Ray is featured prominently with Giovanna, but she doesn't do anything. Actually, the whole character is not that interesting in the context of Guilty Gear. Almost all of her attacks are simple punches and kicks. This also was true for Jam, but she had her unique stuff, like buffing her specials and cancelling one special into others. I don't play Street Fighter, and no offense to those of you who do, but Giovanna is exactly what I imagine a middle-of-the-road Street Fighter character would play like. I like her design and personality, but in terms of gameplay, the only thing she has going for her are her speed and frame data. If only those speed and frame data could save her from bad writing. Man, they did this character dirty.
Anji Mito.
Anji is a trickster who relies on confusing and countering his opponent through mix-ups and special dodges. As such, a big part of his success relies on the player's ability to be unpredictable with their attacks, while making good reads on the opponent. Let's start with Anji's normals, specifically slash and heavy slash attacks. All of Anji's fan attacks cover a lot of space with crouched slash and neutral heavy slash striking on both sides, which can help you with cross-ups. Forward heavy slash command normal is an advancing attack with an enormous coverage, being big enough to hit jumping opponents and nail attacks with low hurt boxes, like Soul's Nitrate Vortex. Crouched heavy slash is a weird one. It launches the opponent, somehow, which already leads to some nice combos, but you cannot combo into it outside of counter hits. However, it can be used as a trap when the opponent blocks your slash attacks, because its startup is just long enough for the opponent to leave block stun and initiate an attack. This leads to even more painful combos. Time to move on to special attacks. Right off the bat, let's start with Anji's legendary Fuji, which makes him dash forward with an attack. This special has 4 follow-ups. The first one is Shin Ichishiki, where Anji jumps in the air and throws his fans to the ground. This follow-up is used to lock the opponent down in case they block Fuji. If the opponent tries to respond with an attack, they will most likely hit the fans. If the opponent blocks the fans, you get to either safely block their next attack or initiate one of your own. The thing is, this attack is easily countered like this. If the opponent can predict this attack and jump after you, you're in for some pain. So you have to condition them into trying to block your grounded attacks first. The next follow-up is a Sokutobi, which makes Anji jump forward with no attacks. You can use it to restart your pressure or just throw your opponent. However, this move can be easily countered either by a quick attack or by another throw. Even more so if it's a command throw. The third follow-up is Nagiha, which is a low swipe that causes a knockdown. Nothing more to add except that the window to punish it on block is pretty small. The final follow-up is Rin, which is an overhead strike that floor bounces the opponent, which in some cases leaves them open for another attack. It doesn't give you a true combo, so the opponent can either block it or counter it with an attack of their own, or just punish and block. This makes this follow-up somewhat risky to use. These 4 follow-ups together give Anji amazing mix-up capabilities. You get both a low and an overhead, a throw window, and an escape route on block. And while all of these actions can be countered, the opponent still needs to get a good read or react well to your actions first. But apparently this was not enough mix-ups, because the devs figured that they need even more. So what they did? After the patch 1.10, they let you cancel Fujin into its follow-ups without having to wait for the attack to finish. This makes Anji's mix-up potential go sky high. You know what else makes it go sky high? The next special attack, Shitsu, which is a butterfly-shaped projectile. By itself it's very slow and doesn't even go full screen. It becomes very useful up close, however. On hit and block, Shitsu turns into another projectile that flies upward before falling down. Sadly, it no longer looks like Aerosmith logo. When you cause a hard knockdown, this allows you to do a setup where the opponent will have to block Shitsu and deal with whatever you might do at the same time, which can be pretty annoying. Then you add Roman cancels into the mix, and this can become a real headache. The third special move is Ko, which is a very quick jump in anti-air. Depending on the distance and height, you will be able to continue attacking after you land. Or you can just go with the hard knockdown and the Shitsu setup. Ko cannot hit the grounded opponent, at all. However, it actually recovers while you are still in the air, so you can actually do a jump in normal after it, which can give you a combo with good timing. The final special is Suigetsu no Hakubi, which makes Anji advance while spinning. The longer you keep the button pressed, the longer Anji will spin. If the opponent attacks you while you are spinning, their attack will whiff, leaving them open for a counterattack. If you can read the opponent well, this special will allow you to bypass their attacks and punish them. However, if the opponent can guess when you are going to use it, they can tell you to take this twirly bullshit elsewhere. Overall, this move is great, but what if I told you that this dodge is actually present in other specials as well? If you hold the button on Fujin and Ko, Anji will perform the similar spinning move, and likewise, if the opponent attacks, your dodge will go off and leave them open. This works in the same way as Suigetsu no Hakubi, which means that the special you did the input for will not go off. That's not all, however. Both Ko and Fujin also get additional buffs if you hold the button down. Ko will launch the opponent higher than usual, and Fujin will, well, just launch the opponent. Both cases allow you to transition into combos, with Ko in particular benefiting nicely from crouched heavy slash launcher. All of these moves make Anji quite the trickster. He has mix-ups, counter dodges, and attacks that are quite easy to combo with. All that's left are the overdrives. The first overdrive is Kacho Fugetsu Kai, which puts Anji into a counter stance, and if the opponent lands a hit, they will eat a cinematic combo. Note that, if it doesn't connect well enough, the attack will start without the cinematic and becomes vulnerable. The second overdrive is Issei-Ogi Sai, where Anji releases two giant fans that spin in place. This attack is used either as a combo ender or to break the wall. Note that it counts as a projectile, so the fans will not disappear if you RC it. Overall, Anji benefits quite a lot from reading his opponent well. His options allow him to confuse his opponent with Fujin follow-ups and Shitsu setups, and land some very painful punishes if he catches the opponent with his special dodge or counter stance overdrive. However, his tools can be very risky to use, as there is a definite way of punishing most of them. Anji's entire shtick relies on the opponent misreading Anji's actions, but you don't really need to make reads. You can defend against most of his attacks using reaction alone. With Fujin, you are perfectly safe just holding down back to block both it and Nagiha. After that, it's just a matter of learning to react to his other follow-ups. You see his Sokotobi's animation? Just input of row. See Rin's long-ass startup? Switch to standing block. Anji jumps in the air, go after him and do an air combo. And if you're Potemkin... Ah yeah, speaking of jumping. Arxis, bring back Tenjin Kyako. Seriously, come on. Ino turned out to be a pretty weird one for me. I never really learned any combos. I mean, I tried to, but I didn't really bother remembering them. I was just doing basic shit like this thing here, and considering how much damage everything in this game does, it was enough. It was so effective, in fact, that this Giovanna straight up quit the game here. There was this bug where the lobby was showing my level to be 7, but the menu said it's 30, and yeah, that's pretty much how it felt for me. Ino was classified as a rushdowner by the game, and yes, that's what she excels at. Two of her special moves let her stop the opponent from moving in on her and push them to the corner, where Ino has some very nasty setups. Right off the bat, the first big hurdle is Ino's hover dash. It takes some time getting used to. It allows you to dodge throws, but on the other hand, you can't close the distance as easily as other characters can, because your attempts to do so become very obvious, and that makes it easy to counter you with anti-airs. Now let's talk about Ino's normals. Look at this far slash attack. See this cool special effect? It's all hitbox, no hurt boxes. The attack's effective range extends according to the animation, and with the right timing, you can catch someone who thinks they can just dash up to you without getting smacked. Crouch Slash also has a very good reach. It doesn't have an invincible hitbox, but it works very well for countering mid and high attacks. The only drawback is that it's not a low attack. Neutral Heavy Slash makes Ino slam her guitar against the ground so hard the opponent bounces off of it. Needless to say, it leads to follow-ups with special attacks. Crouched Heavy Slash looks similar, but only ground bounces airborne opponents. It does have a big invincible hitbox, but sadly it's not a low either. Jumping Slash and Heavy Slash have some very nice coverage and can be used as quick overheads during the hover dash. You do need to be at a certain height for Heavy Slash to work, otherwise it gets cancelled on landing. You can intentionally use that to fake an overhead though. Finally, there is the grounded forward heavy slash command normal, which is a close range attack with 2 hits, the latter of which launches the opponent away, which can be followed up with specials. It also can be comboed into from jumping heavy slash. Moving on to special attacks. The first one is Stroke the Big Tree, which is more or less Ino's take on Soul's Ground Viper or Nitrate Vortex. The one big difference is that it's a low attack. This special has slash and heavy slash versions that differ in the distance they cover, with heavy slash version covering more ground, and it recovers faster when the opponent's block stun ends. Be aware though, that it can be easily thrown if you misjudge the range. The next special attack is Sultry Performance, that makes Ino dive in a direction depending on a button press. You get 3 versions: Kick, Slash, and Heavy Slash. Kick and Slash versions are mostly for punishing grounded opponents, as they don't really lead to combos without Roman cancels. Heavy Slash version is a good air-to-air attack and combo tool. The big drawback is that you miss with it, like I do here, you will be stuck with recovery, which means getting punished with a lot of pain. All 3 versions can be charged by holding down the attack button. Kick and Slash versions will now ground bounce the opponent, which can be followed up with some combos depending on your position. Charged Heavy Slash version does 5 hits instead of the usual 3 and launches the opponent slightly higher. Finally, if you press the same button when the special connects, Ino will bounce off the opponent, which allows her to do any aerial action. For Kick and Slash version, this allows you to make the attack safer on block or to continue pressure. Cool guys also use it with a Heavy Slash version to extend their combos. The next special is Chemical Love, which is a very long hitbox that you use to lock the opponent out of approaching you or counter-attacking, or as a combo ender. It can also be used in the air, though you will be stuck on recovery afterwards. Better not miss with it. Grounded version is also prone to missing when the opponent's hurt box gets low enough, so be careful with it. The final special is Antidepressant Scale, which fires a music note-shaped projectile. The projectile's movement can be controlled with directional inputs. It also becomes stronger the longer it goes. You can use this special to force the opponent to block or move in a certain way. Antidepressant Scale and Chemical Love are vital tools for Ino's game plan, as they restrict the opponent's movement options, which allows Ino to approach the fight on her terms. In the corner, Antidepressant Scale can be used to completely lock the opponent down to set up Ino's corner pressure. And set corner pressure is one of the nastiest in the game, because she can easily alternate between high and low attacks, or even fake a high attack and do something else. Sultry Performance's bounce cancels also help her mix up her offensive in this situation. Given the proper conditioning, the opponent might get scared into holding block continuously, which is when you break out your ultimate weapon. Remember this thing here? Thousands of old Guild Gear players over the ages came to fear this attack instinctively, their souls screaming in pain and agony when they remember those terrifying times. It's a command throw now! After you conditioned your opponent into trying to block all of your pressure, you can use the Megalomania Overdrive. Yes, it's an overdrive now. And it's a command throw, and the one that leads to a lot of pain in this setup. Ino will also follow through with the attack even if the throw doesn't connect. Okay, that's great, but actually it's the same case as with the boss Ino's attack. It only looks scary. Outside of the aforementioned situation, Megalomania is mostly fluff. The effective range on the grab itself is pitiful, and even once Ino initiates the main attack, the projectile barrage can be easily avoided with a jump. Or you can just block it, you won't receive that much cheap damage. Ino's second overdrive is the classic ultimate Fortissimo, which creates a musical explosion around her. In Strive, the explosion causes a guard crash, which allows you to continue your offense. Now, Ino lost her classic Long in Desperation overdrive, which acted as her grounded invincible reversal, but she no longer needs it because Ultimate Fortissimo can now be activated on the ground. Ino is a very good rushdown character. She can lock down her opponents by forcing them to block with Antidepressant Scale or deny an approach with Chemical Love, and once she corners the opponent, her pressure is very hard to escape. However, her more complex stuff also requires tighter execution than usual, and it's easy to mistime your inputs on some combos. She can also be very hard to use effectively in some matchups. This especially concerns her aerial options, when you fight against characters with strong anti-airs. Needing matchup knowledge is supposedly one of Ino's primary weaknesses. I can see that being the case, and I wish I could test more matchups with her, but every time I play it's nothing but bycans. Well, that's it for the breakdown of a base roster characters. Thank you for watching. I don't think I will do such a breakdown for the DLC characters because I don't have the DLC and, frankly speaking, I don't like the game enough to spend more money on it. After playing Strife since the release, I can say that most of my complaints I've voiced in my, review still hold up. Strife is a good fighting game on its own, but as a part of a Guilty Gear series, it's definitely a lesser game. ArcSys just watered down the series' gameplay to make it more similar to every other 2D fighting game on the market and go mainstream. Sure, it worked out for them in terms of sales, but it's still very disappointing that they chose to dump a bucket of water into their glass of orange juice. Yeah, the Roman cancel system is still here and it still allows you to do some crazy stuff, but you didn't need Roman cancels to do crazy stuff in previous games. Crazy stuff could just be done naturally. You could do Soul's Wild Throw and then do a full combo to extend the damage. In Strife, you do Wild Throw, and unless you have tension to RC it, that's all you get. You had so much more freedom in terms of options thanks to the Gatling mechanic and many moves being jump cancelable. All of that is just gone now, because God forbid someone would have to press buttons in this game. And that's just the gameplay stuff, aesthetics didn't go unbutchered either. The only thing I can really compliment this game for is the online multiplayer. The netcode works well despite all the connectivity issues, and the rank tower is fine, we just need more floors in it. Well, now I am thankfully done here, so I can finally forget about Strive and go back and relearn proper Guilty Gear with accent right. KOF 15 is out.